Raised in Leander, now living in Iraq, we are so grateful this morning to have Jeremy Courtney with us talking about his brand new book that comes out in 1 week, highlighting the medical mission he and his wife have been on now for 6 years. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. Incredible work going on with you and your team over there. Tell me how all of this began.
Well, it began a couple of years ago. We've been there about 6 years now. So really at the height of the Sunni-Shia conflict in Iraq, my wife and I moved into the country just to see what we could do to be a part of kind of putting things back together. And it was in that time, in that context, when I met this little girl whose father appealed to me and said, you know, sir, clearly you're an American, you've come here to help. My little girl was born with this huge hole in her heart. There's not a doctor or a hospital in the entire country that can save her life. There's something you could do to help our family.
And through this effort called the Preemptive Love Coalition, you essentially put teams of doctors together. You're not a doctor yourself, but you facilitate these teams.
Yeah, in the early years, the dad was actually right. There wasn't really a hospital or a doctor in the whole country who was capable of doing something like this. The country was obviously wrapped up in much bigger concerns. And so in the early years, we had to actually send these kids outside the country. We had to get them out to better medical facilities abroad. And after doing that for a number of years, we realized we're not making any difference here at home in Iraq. Iraq is not any better off for our efforts. And then we made an about face and said, we're not going to export the problem anymore. We're going to bring in solutions come what may. And so we've been working with medical groups across the country to bring in the training that Iraqis need so they can solve this problem on their own.
Got it. So that eventually you're giving the Iraqis the expertise to do it on their own, and you can kind of step back and ease off a bit. What are the challenges that you face over there, and how is it different than what the healthcare system that we're used to here?
Well, in America, nationwide, worldwide, heart defects are among the #1 birth defect in the world. And in Iraq, you know, one of the challenges that we face is a piling up of these kids, a waiting in line. In America, you don't have kids that go without heart surgery. So it's a problem here, but they get the surgery they need. They have access to it. In Iraq, after decades of dictatorship and war and sanctions and things like this, the healthcare system is just so overburdened that they can't care for the kids. So these kids are just lining up, stacking up. We call it the backlog. And there's, at its height, the backlog has probably been tens of thousands of kids who are waiting in line for these heart surgeries. So just the overall burden is one thing, but the lack of capacity. One thing that always happens in war is what we call brain drain. You know, the best and the brightest end up leaving because they have the means to. And so it's just going to take a while to reinstill that education. Baghdad used to be the center of the Middle East in terms of medical care and development, and sadly that's no longer the case.
And so at what point did you say, hey, I should write a book about this?
Well, you know, we've had donors and friends along the way who have suggested it. We've had people who have wanted to know more about the story. But it really, the impetus to write the book really came when we believed that we had a message here. It's not simply about heart surgeries. That would be a backdrop for the greater story. The greater story that the book tries to address is this question of what would it be like if we loved our enemies? What would it be like if we tried a totally different tack for diplomatic relations? And that's not a foreign policy statement as much as it's a statement about me and my family and our community and our religious groups and it's a communal question. What are we afraid of? And what might we do to try and overcome that fear in our own hearts?
All right, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here this morning. The book is called Preemptive Love, and it goes on sale October 1st.